Good morning, friends. I am, I feel like I say this a lot. I am so excited for all of our guests, but particularly this beautiful woman you're looking at. I don't think there's ever been a time like we're living in today to have someone like the woman you're looking at join us who is an abortion survivor. She is a leading pro life advocate, and she is author of the incredible book Survivor. Welcome to Claire Culwell.
Thanks so much for having me. This is such an honor.
I'm I'm so blessed you're here. And Claire, you are such a force in this movement. And people from all around the globe know about you and your story. But yet, um, I feel like I was late to the party. And when I came across you, I know um, Abby just loves you and is so just such a praiser of your story as well. So when I'm late to the party and hear about you, I'm like, who is this phenomenal woman? We've got to get her on. So I am just so blessed you're with us today. And you have particularly one of the most beautiful stories of redemption and healing and forgiveness. Talk about being Christ like. You embody all of that. So, Claire, just catch us up to speed. What is the last week since Roe has been overturned significantly for you? What does that mean? What has it been like?
I think my first thought, I was at the beach. I was actually at the beach for the entire past week, and I was with my family, and I kept seeing all these people like celebrating together. People were at the pro-life women's conference, and I kind of was like, man, I feel left out, like I'm not celebrating with my people. But then I kind of embraced like this moment of I'm with my family, and this is not just my story. Yes, I met my birth mother. I found out I survived her abortion, that successfully aborted my twin. But this is my family's story. I was with my parents who adopted me, and my sister who's also adopted. I mean, we have this crazy pro-life story. There are more people in our family that are adopted than not. And so I was with my family, and I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, what is happening up in heaven? Like my twin must be rejoicing in heaven with God, with my grandparents, with others, that this incredible rejoicing. That's what I just kept imagining. And then I was thinking about my birth mother. What would this law, this overturning of Roe v. Wade, what would this have meant for her? And kind of just mourning that, of my, maybe my twin would be here with me. Maybe I would be telling a very different story, but also my birth mother wouldn't have this incredible agony and pain of what she experienced as a 13-year-old girl, being pregnant and scared and not knowing what she was going to do, and not having people that wanted to walk alongside her and told her that she was worthy, that she was strong enough to be a mother, so many things. And so it's kind of been a whirlwind of emotions where I'm kind of understanding what could have been, but also celebrating what's to come, that other people will not experience abortion like we have. We know that this isn't an end for all abortions. It's going back to the states. So there's a lot of work ahead. I'm really excited about how my story will continue to be used, how I can partner with other organizations that are really making a difference. So all that to say, my eyes are open to what could have been, what we're missing, the reality of what's taken place over the past 50 years. I don't know that it's ever hit me as hard as it did when this was overturned, but I'm also hopeful and excited for what's ahead.
Yes. I'm so overwhelmed. And I have to say, I agree with you. One of my initial reactions was all of heaven is just rejoicing right now. And, people like you and I are often so attacked, and that we have these ulterior motives. I was attacked this morning saying I'm doing this for Facebook fame. And I said, well, let me tell you, my follower count keeps going down. I'm on the side of a minority right now, and I'm getting attacked every day. So if you think I'm doing this for fame, you might need to rethink this. It's those of us who are standing on the side of Christ and trying to be a voice for the helpless and the unborn. It's just overwhelming to us. And then my second thought, after thinking of all what is happening in heaven right now, was not all of them, but some of these precious baby boys and girls who are scheduled to die are now going to live. And that is just so overwhelming. And my heart rotates between anger and frustration and impatience, and then somewhat of a compassion to this other side that they can't see that. They see women's rights being stripped and their empowerment is gone. And all we want to do is say, let us help empower you. You can do this. You can choose life. There are other options. And there is instances where unfathomable events that take place that lead to an unplanned or an unwanted pregnancy. But two acts of violence, that's not going to take away that. Another act of violence is not going to take that initial trauma away. It's only creating double trauma.
Right.
And then when I look at you, who has so many reasons to feel so many negative emotions, and you're the epitome of these Christ-like feelings and compassion, like the world needs more of you. And that's why your story is just absolutely incredible. So Claire, how old were you? First of all, how old were you when you found out you were adopted?
I actually don't remember finding out I was adopted. It was
Okay.
this thing in our family. Like I said, my sister and I are both adopted. And so it was kind of our normal. Neither of us remember like actually having a conversation with our parents about being adopted. It was just something that was always known. And it was just this positive thing. We knew we had birth mothers. We knew that one day they could become part of our lives and our stories, and we celebrated that. I tell people often that my parents told us that we were wanted, chosen, and loved. They spoke incredible things over our lives so that we were secure in who we were. And I think it wasn't until I was older, especially when I met my birth mother and found out what I found out, that I realized that these were kind of taboo topics, that there wasn't always this positive conversation surrounding adoption and how my family was made up.
Right. So what came about? What events, what things happened to lead you to know your traumatic and miraculous story
Well, my
of
sister
surviving?
met her birth mother. I was in college. My sister had met her birth mother when she was like 17 or 18. And I had the opportunity to meet her birth mother. I was around 20 years old at this point, and I was in college, studying to be a nurse. Actually going to college in the same town where Abby Johnson ran her abortion clinic. And my sister met her birth mother. I had the opportunity to meet her, and that was the first time I ever like connected the dots of, oh my gosh, our birth mothers are people. They're women who sacrifice so much for us. I was able to see how much they looked alike, how much they acted alike. They have very similar personalities. And I was able to hear her birth mother's story. And I realized that her birth mother was 30 years old, could have easily raised my sister, could have easily had an abortion, had the support from her family, could have kept my sister in the family, but she couldn't give her a dad. And that was something she knew was so important. And so she placed my sister for adoption. And I realized what a sacrifice that was, how loving and courageous that was. And I realized that my birth mother was someone too, someone who had a story, someone who had a reason, and someone that deserve to be thanked. And so I reached out to my birth mother, or to my adoption agency, who then found my birth mother. And um, it was actually my birth mother's caseworker from 21 years before that ended up reuniting us. And what I didn't know then that I know now is that that caseworker knew what a miracle my life was. And she said on the phone that day, before I met my birth mother, she said, "Claire, I remember you. I have your picture on my desk. I know you were this tiny baby. Your birth mother loved you very much, but you should know she was very young. She was 13 years old when she was pregnant with you. She was 14 when you were born. I don't know if I'll be able to find her, but I'll try." And that year, that was 2008, she called me on Christmas Eve and said, "I found your birth mother." And I was so excited. I thought, this is going to go exactly how my sister's reunion went. And it did. We had this incredible reunion in March of just 3 months later. And I brought my family, she brought her family. And we look alike, we act alike. She was a nurse, I was studying to be a nurse. There were so many crazy similarities. And so I thought, I want to continue to get to know her. And so we scheduled a second meeting, and this time I would fly to Oklahoma to get to know her one-on-one, without my family, without my security blanket of being in my familiar place, but I would get to just be with her and be with her family, her daughters. I have 3 half sisters through her that I have gotten to know. And that night that I got there, I gave her a gift, and it was a ring and a necklace with my birthstone on it. I wanted her to know how grateful I was for my life. And then I had a card, and all I wrote in the card, I don't even know why. God must have known this is what I needed to write. But I wrote, "Thank you for choosing life for me." And I signed my name. And I'd never thought about abortion growing up. I don't remember it being talked about from the pulpit of my church. I don't even know why I wrote those words. All I knew was I was so grateful to her because I saw what my sister's birth mother did for my family, for giving me my sister. And I wanted her to feel that same gratitude. And I'll never forget the moment she opened the card, she read the words, and she broke down into tears. And all she could speak through her tears, through the most painful look in her eyes that I've ever seen in anyone's eyes, she just kept saying, "Claire, I didn't choose life for you. I'm so sorry I didn't." And I was so confused in that moment. She actually walked me into another room in her home, and she told me about being pregnant with me at 13. Her mother not supporting her, her mother telling her that, "You're going to do this, you're going to have this abortion, you're going to shut up about it, nobody's going to know, you're going to take this to your grave." And she had a D&E, which is a dismemberment, late-term abortion, still very commonly performed. Even post-Roe will be commonly performed in states that are still have legal abortion. And she said it was painful. Nobody spoke to her in the room that day. The doctors never asked her what her choice would have been. And she went home to pretend like it never happened. Well, she realized a few weeks later that her amniotic fluid was leaking. Something wasn't right. And so she went back to the doctor, and they told her that, oops, they had accidentally missed one of her babies, that she had been pregnant with twins and one had successfully been aborted, but that I had survived. And they said, "What do you want to do?" And her mother said, "Well, we need a second abortion, that she's still 13. She's still not ready to be a mother. We need to fix this." And so they actually drove her to Kansas, which is where Dr. Tiller was at the time, a famous late-term abortionist. There were other late-term abortionists there where you could get an abortion at any time for any reason up until the moment of birth. And my birth mother was ready to have her second abortion. And miraculously, this doctor said, because she was leaking amniotic fluid, it was too dangerous for her to have that second abortion. And so she was sent home. Her mother dropped her off at the adoption agency, and she lived there for a few weeks until I was born. And I was born with at 3 pounds. I had a dislocated hip. I had club feet. I was in body casts until I was 2 years old. I visited the Children's Crippled Hospital until I was 18. I still have complications today. But I'll never forget, as crazy as this moment was, I mean, I don't even know that I could grasp it until I got home and I began to process with my family, and I began to kind of start to tell people, however you do that, tell them that I found out I survived my birth mother's abortion. Um, but in the room that night, after my birth mother left and we finished our conversation, I picked up the phone and I called my parents, my safe place, and I told them what I had just found out. And my dad said, God's fingerprints are written all over this. You must be here for a reason. And he said, you have a choice to make now. You can choose to trust God. You can choose to be used in your birth mother's life and other people's lives. All you have to do is be willing. And that changed my perspective that day, because I went from finding out I was unwanted, I was rejected, I was aborted, I was missing my twin, the person that I would have been closest to for the rest of my life, to I know who I am. I know who I am because of who my parents have told me all my life who I am, that I am wanted, chosen, and loved, not only by them, but by God. And so this can be okay. As heartbreaking and confusing as it was, that I could walk the face of this earth for the rest of my life and know I am a twin abortion survivor in the name of choice, but there's a reason. And I think the reason is for such a time as this. People know the truth. People see the truth in the humanity of the abortion survivor.
I've done so many interviews and I've just never been this emotional.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It is emotional.
It is. And it's a culmination of everything, your tremendous story. And the innocence of these precious babies, and the hate on the other side is so fierce. Mm. And I'm personally just battling, trying to show compassion and more Christ-like behaviors against such evil. And I feel like you were just the epitome of that, and just such an example. And truly, your story just needs to be heard by everybody on both sides. And the people who are teetering, and the people, the mothers, even if this is their first pregnancy, when you get pregnant, you're already a mother. You become a mother at conception. And so many of us find ourselves in situations where we're scared, and it's the worst timing and it's the worst situation. But there's no life that is less valuable than another. And I just feel like you are truly, and I know we are all loved by God. We all have a purpose, but I'm just in awe of you, because you truly do have such a great purpose, and you and your story is what's, God willing, going to save so many lives and change so many minds. And honestly, my heart is just, I feel like I'm just constantly going through 5 different emotions at one time, And so I can't even imagine you. So tell me, after after you find out this news and walk through this and process, what is the timeline? How shortly after did you say, okay, I feel convicted, I need to share this story, I need to do something? What was that timeline?
Well, God's definitely taken me on a roller coaster, because I think I definitely planned to go home and tell people, but I also like quickly realized that as I was telling people in my life, even extended family members, even friends that I knew cared about me, I quickly realized that they didn't want to hear it. I mean, it exposed a reality for them that they didn't want to face. And so I was pretty dismissed by a lot of people. But the crazy thing is that when I was in college, that's when I met my birth mother. I was studying to be a nurse, and I lived on a street that where the Planned Parenthood was, just a couple blocks down where Abby Johnson worked. And I didn't grow up knowing what Planned Parenthood was. Even in college, I was 21 years old. I had no idea that they performed abortions, that they were our nation's largest abortion provider. All I knew was that there was this Planned Parenthood on this street, and I had gone home, actually in between meeting my birth mother and her telling me, during that 3 months waiting period before I found out what I found out, I had stopped and asked these people that were outside of this Planned Parenthood what in the world they were doing, because I thought,
Yeah.
why are these people like standing there? I didn't know if they were praying, just staring, protesting, being weird. I mean, I just
Right.
had no clue. I'd
Yeah.
heard of a movement. I'd never thought about abortion really in my life, maybe at all. And they told me that day that Planned Parenthood was an abortion provider, that they were there to reach out to the women, to walk alongside them, to point them in the direction of pregnancy resource centers. And I thought, that is incredible. But will I ever do that? No way. Like, I wiped my hands clean, walked away, thought, that will never be me. I am actually 100% introverted. Any given day, I'd rather stay home, be with my family, be with my kids, not talk about controversial issues. Um, Definitely don't like conflict. And so I thought, there's no way that I'll ever do that. Y'all do that. God's called y'all to
Right.
that. He will never call me to that. Well, a few weeks later, I met my birth mother, found out I survived her abortion, found out she felt unsupported, unworthy. Nobody asked her what her choice would have been. Nobody encouraged her to know that she was strong enough to be a mother, that there were resources for her. They rushed her into an abortion clinic. She had an abortion, and it is the single most life altering moment of her entire life. And so I went back to those people. I went back to the people on the sidewalk and I said, I need to tell y'all what I just found out. And they had this little office next door. If you've seen the movie Unplanned, you kind of can picture it, but they had this office next door. And I walked into their office and sat down with them, and there was Abby Johnson. And she had left her job maybe a week and a half before. She had quit her job, and it was all the same people that helped her leave the abortion industry. They're the first people I told my story to, outside of my family and close friends. And of course they're crying and they say, gosh, same things, God has a plan for you, your life is a miracle. And over time, over the next few weeks, they started to encourage me to share my story. Abby was sharing her story. I had like a front row seat to that. I actually started traveling with her the first few months of when she was sharing her story. I mean, this could show you exactly how little I knew about abortion, because I was so naive to what Abby had even participated in. And we were instantly the closest of friends. And I mean, that's God at work right there, the most unlikely of friends. We became close friends. And so they encouraged me to share my story. And so in December of that year, so what, 9 months after I met my birth mother, they said, there's a little youth group. Abby's going to share her story. Sean's going to speak. And Claire, could you share your story? I mean, it won't be a big deal. It'll be like 50 kids. Just try it out and see what you think. And I said, okay, fine. Well, I got there that day and they said, change of plans. You're actually going to speak 3 times to 3 groups instead of once. And I think they did that on purpose, knowing that I was an introvert and already like shaking. I can remember my heels shaking as I shared my story, but I did it. I got through all 3 of them. And I watched as these kids, these middle school and high school kids, the light bulbs went off in their head as they humanized the unborn child. And somebody once said to me a few years ago, he said, Claire, I realized as you were standing up on stage sharing your story that when I look at your face, I'm literally looking at your twin, which means I'm literally looking at the aborted baby. And that's what I saw in these kids' faces. I mean, they really got it. You know, we have these 2 windows to the womb right now in our country, and that's through ultrasound technology where we can see the humanity of the unborn, but it's also through the abortion survivor, through the face and the name and the story and the humanity of the abortion survivor. And I saw them get it in the room that day. And I thought, okay, God, if this is how it works, if my story can be used, you're going to have to do the work, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't like this at all. I am uncomfortable every second of telling my story, of being in front of people. Still to this day, 12 years later, I still feel like I'm going to throw up before I go up on a stage or share my story. But I knew that if God wanted to use me, that just like my dad said when I called him that first time and told him what I had just found out, that all I had to do was be willing. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And I mean, God just opened doors. I've shared my story about 20 to 30 times a year for the past 12 years. I've been protested. I've had horrible things said about me. But I'm okay with that, because I know that means that God is using my story and it's making people think about not only the humanity of the unborn and the science and the biology behind it, but also what God says about life and how we're created in his image with a purpose. So here I am.
Literally, I am going to be, I don't even know how I'm going to do my next interview. I am just wrecked in such a good way. And, you know, something you had said that I think is so crucial right now in this fight for life, because it is a brutal fight. People are naive. They don't understand what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. And I think once they begin to, those that get a taste of it, or they're like starting to piece it together, or they see proof, or they hear about dismemberment and the actual, I use these 2 words together often, the barbaric evil. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's not even touching it. But when they start to learn of the barbaric evil that's actually taking place, it's too much for them, because they do have a heart, they do have a soul, they do. It's just almost like, well, that's not right, that's not right, they're just trying to, that's, that can't be possible,
Mhm.
when it is. And we're living in this time where the truth hurts. The truth is so hard to accept. And I feel like the best thing we can be doing is educating people. And like you said, when you were talking to those high schoolers, um, I even think middle schooler. Well, obviously, look at your birth mother at age 13. I have and it just breaks my heart. Man, I feel like the last week is just coming out right now. My oldest daughter's 14 and she's very pro-life. She comes to mass with me every day. We say the rosary every day. Um, and she was so taken over the last several days. She sees girls her age like making posters and chanting for signs for the right to abortion, and she's hurt. She's so confused. Like, how can someone so young be screaming to be able to kill a baby? And um, I feel like we need to talk to our young girls. As a matter of fact, I've talked with Abby and her husband Doug about this. Months ago, I said, who's talking to our young girls right now? Like, who is talking to our young girls? And Abby's husband, Doug, said to me, well, that's easy. He's like, Billie Eilish is.
Mhm.
And, Taylor Swift is. And all the people on TikTok are. And Demi Lovato is. That's who's talking to our young girls. That's who's taking the reins and getting tens of millions of them. And that really hit me so hard that we really need to be starting there on educating and empowering them to make good decisions. And and it stuck with me. A priest had once said, and I wish I knew who it was to quote him, but it's better to talk to our children a year too early rather than a day too late.
Mhm.
And I feel like, especially, these times we're living in and the access to technology and all of this social media, again, I say it, and this is my life. Social media is how is part of my ministry and how I do my work. But it is such a blessing and such a curse. And, um, and I feel like my goodness, adults aren't getting it, but so many of these adults are robbing the innocence of our children and indoctrinating them on so many things, so many levels. I mean, that would be like a 12 series podcast that we would need to talk about that. But especially this, like telling young girls that, you know what I mean? Your right has just been stripped of you and you have a right to kill your baby. And it's truly crushing for people like you and I. And so so being in your position, which is just so unique, um, and God has such a hand over you, what would be one piece of advice that you could give to mothers and or young girls right now? What would you say?
You're right. Children are so impressionable. I've had to have these conversations with my children. I mean, these kind of conversations are kind of our normal. We don't live um, the most normal life just because they've heard about this for so long. And I think as I was hearing you talk about that, I would just encourage mothers and parents, and I mean even fathers, to have these conversations in your homes, because if you're not talking about this, somebody else is talking about it with your children. And my 14-year-old, he he surprised me the other day. I said, what would you say to this situation or that situation or this situation? And some of his answers weren't even things that we had really discussed. But because we've opened that conversation, he's really thinking about it. And he said some things that I couldn't have said better. And so I would just encourage people to talk about it. And for our youth, I think that we need to be educating ourselves on what the truth is, not what the popular thing is, or what the news is telling us. I think that the best thing that we can do for ourselves and is to find out the truth, and to dig for yourself.
Yes. And these are difficult conversations to have, especially with your children. And I have had more difficult conversations with my kids than I ever imagined having on numerous topics of everything that's happening today. And they're hard and they're uncomfortable, but they're necessary because, like you said, if it's not mom or dad having it with them, someone else will. Or they'll simply find it online from some random person making a TikTok that has no, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you're right. Those conversations are so necessary. Well, I want to wrap with talking about your book, Survivor. So when did you write this?
So Survivor came out last April, and I actually have it right here. This is my book. Oh, let's see. Here we go.
Yes.
And it's telling my story. As you can see, there's one child in one swing, and one swing that's empty, so, for my twin. And it's just telling my story. You heard a little bit of it, the big moment that happened, but there's so much that happened after that, before that, that led up to this moment, from how I was raised, my parents' story of not being able to have children, but praying fervently for children. And God miraculously handpicked me, an unwanted baby, and gave me to them so that I could be wanted. And then afterwards, of my journey of becoming a mother and living in this world that does want to dismiss and disregard my experience, my birth mother's experience, and then even on to my choice to forgive my birth mother, and the redemption that's happened in our story, because of how I was raised, and because I knew that I had the option to choose to forgive. And so it's an incredible book. I've heard so many people that have gotten so many different life lessons out of it, even aside from that big moment. I know going into writing it, I thought the big moment for people will be my survival, the moment my birth mother told me about her abortion. But it really has been more than that. It's been the forgiveness and the redemption in my story that people can relate to most.
Yes. Claire, you've become like one of my favorite people. We need to meet in person one day. Truly, you
I
are
would love
just
that.
I would absolutely love it. And seriously, I have done a lot of interviews on a lot of topics and I have never wait till Abby sees this. She's going to be like, oh, Reg, you needed me there to pull you through. But no, that is just how heartbreaking and beautiful and miraculous your story is. And you are walking, living proof of so many of God's blessings. And you are just the epitome of everything this world needs right now. And so where is the best place, and I can link all this once we head off. I will link your book and your website. Where's the best place for people to contact you, even if they want to share a story with you, if they want to book you to speak? Where is the best place for people to reach out?
Yes, I would love, if you are listening today and this is a hard, painful topic for you. Maybe it's bringing up old experiences and old memories and hurts and opening wounds. I just want to say that I am here, and I would love to talk with you, because the same forgiveness that's available for my birth mother is available for you. And there is redemption and healing on the other side. So my website is claireculwell.com. You can reach out to me there. You can purchase my book there, but it is also at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Christian Bookstore.
Wonderful. And I'll make sure we link all of that for people just to be able to grab it easily. Claire, thank you. God bless you in your work and your story. And I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care, Claire.